The way the American people whose sons and daughters are dying look at it. Our economy is $23 trillion. Mexico's economy is $1.3 trillion. Ours is 18 times bigger. We buy $400 billion every year from Mexico. Without the people of America, Mexico, figuratively speaking, would be eating cat food out of a can and living in a tent behind an outback. So why don't you and the president, embarrassing no one, get on the phone and call President Lopez Obrador and make him a deal he can't refuse to allow our military and our law enforcement officials to go into Mexico and work with his to stop the cartels? Why don't you do that?
Senator, what I am doing every single day is working with the incredible men and women of DEA who are risking their lives across 334 offices worldwide.
And I appreciate that, but you're not.
All right, I've got to say this right up front. Whether you agree with Senator Kennedy politically or not, you cannot watch that exchange and honestly say he wasn't asking the question that millions of Americans are asking. Because here's the reality. Fentanyl is destroying families. Parents are burying children. Communities are getting hit from coast to coast. And Americans keep hearing the same thing year after year. We're working on it. We're coordinating. Whole-of-government approach. Ongoing efforts. Meanwhile, the crisis keeps getting worse. What stood out to me in this hearing is that Kennedy kept trying to drag the conversation back to one simple issue. What would actually stop the cartels? Now, you can disagree with his proposed solution. That's fair. But what he was clearly frustrated by was what looked to him like a refusal to answer a direct question directly. And honestly, I understand that frustration. Because when elected officials ask agencies for results after years of funding, strategy meetings, task forces, and public statements, people expect clarity, not a maze of talking points. Kennedy's style is blunt, sometimes very blunt. But in moments like this, his approach forces a debate a lot of Washington would rather avoid. Are we using every option available to confront the organizations pumping fentanyl across borders? That's a serious question. And pretending Americans aren't demanding stronger answers is missing the mood of the country entirely. But I want to hear from you. Did Senator Kennedy press an important issue here? Or did he oversimplify a very complex international problem? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoy long-form political reactions, Senate hearing breakdowns, and honest commentary from all sides of the aisle, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's get into the full video.
States, Mexicans are dying as well, as we showed in the Chapitos.
Well, then why don't we stop them?
So
would it help? Let me ask you a fourth time. Would it help if President Lopez Obrador, I don't think it's a complicated question, Madam Administrator. You're asking us for more money every year, more money, and it gets worse, worse, and worse. You know, in the real world, the nitty-gritty of the real world, when you fail, you get fired. In government, when you fail, you get more money because obviously you need it. Now, let me ask you a fourth time. If President Lopez Obrador, and I'd appreciate an answer, if President Lopez Obrador invited the American military and our law enforcement personnel to come into Mexico and work with his, we could stop the cartels, couldn't we?
I believe, Senator, that we can stop the cartels.
Okay. Have you made that suggestion to President Biden?
If I could, I believe that we can stop the cartels by...
Have you made that suggestion to President Biden?
Senator, I have been very vocal in the whole of government setting on the importance of fentanyl, and all of us using every single effort and authority that we have.
Why hasn't President Biden done it? I mean, this is the way the American people whose sons and daughters are dying look at it. Our economy is $23 trillion. Mexico's economy is $1.3 trillion. Ours is 18 times bigger. We buy $400 billion every year from Mexico. Without the people of America, Mexico, figuratively speaking, would be eating cat food out of a can and living in a tent behind an outback. So why don't you and the president, embarrassing no one, get on the phone and call President Lopez Obrador and make him a deal he can't refuse to allow our military and our law enforcement officials to go into Mexico and work with his to stop the cartels. Why don't you do that?
Senator, what I am doing every single day is working with the incredible men and women of DEA who are risking their lives across 334 offices worldwide.
And I appreciate that, but you're not doing what would work. Why won't you do what will work?
Senator, we are...
Why don't you call the president this afternoon and say, Mr. President, let's call President Lopez Obrador privately and make him a deal he can't refuse. Because we both know that President Lopez Obrador has neither the ability nor the will to stop the cartels. But yet we go along and pretend that they're our friends. And Mexico is our friend. But he has criminal organizations that are killing our people. And you know how to stop it. And the president does. And you're not doing it.
Senator, we are working every day to stop it.
But you're not doing what would stop it.
We are transforming, and we are working in countless ways across the globe to do what needs to be done for the American people. And there is nothing that the men and
when
women...
it's important to you, you make it happen. When it's not important to you, you make an excuse.
Okay, now that we've watched the full exchange, here's my reaction. I think Senator Kennedy was doing something that is actually pretty effective in congressional hearings, refusing to let a witness escape into generalized language. Notice the pattern. He asked a very specific hypothetical question multiple times. Not 10 different questions, one question. If Mexico allowed deeper U.S. cooperation involving military or law enforcement resources, could the cartels be stopped? And what frustrated Kennedy, and honestly what I think many viewers noticed, is that the answer never really arrived in a clean, direct form. Instead, we got variations of whole of government, collaboration, ongoing efforts, shared responsibility. Now look, to be fair, international security issues are complicated. Cross-border sovereignty matters. Diplomacy matters. Military involvement carries enormous consequences. Those are real considerations. But here's Kennedy's larger point, as I understood it. If fentanyl is truly the emergency officials describe it to be, and by their own testimony it absolutely is, then why does it sometimes feel like the urgency of the rhetoric isn't matched by the boldness of the strategy? That's the heart of his criticism. And I think another reason this exchange resonated is because Kennedy touched on accountability. He basically said, in normal life, when performance keeps deteriorating, people expect changes, hard reassessments, maybe even consequences. In government, the public often feels the opposite happens. Budgets rise, programs expand, but measurable outcomes remain frustratingly similar. Again, whether you think that criticism is fully fair or not, you can understand why it lands with viewers. I also noticed Kennedy emphasizing leverage, economic leverage, diplomatic leverage, strategic leverage. His argument seemed to be, the United States has influence, so why not use it more aggressively against organizations responsible for a deadly trafficking pipeline? Now, reasonable people can disagree on how that influence should be used. But I don't think it's unreasonable to demand an open discussion about options. And I'll say this too. One reason Kennedy clips spread online is because he has a way of cutting through institutional language and reframing issues in plain, sometimes provocative terms. You can love that style or hate it, but politically, it works because viewers immediately understand the conflict. You say this crisis is catastrophic. So, what decisive action are we willing to take? That's a question with enormous stakes. Because this isn't an abstract policy seminar. We're talking about addiction, overdose deaths, organized crime networks, border security, foreign policy, law enforcement cooperation, real issues affecting real families. Personally, after watching this exchange, my takeaway is not that every answer is simple. It's that Americans are increasingly impatient with conversations that sound endlessly procedural while crises remain deeply personal. And Kennedy tapped directly into that impatience. Now I'm curious where you stand. Was Kennedy asking the hard questions nobody else wanted to ask? Or did he push a solution that ignores diplomatic and legal realities? Comment below. I genuinely want to read both sides of this one. And if you made it this far, Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around for more hearing reactions and political breakdowns.